Sleek, fast, maneuverable, and packing a whole lot of firepower, the S-67 Blackhawk, designed by Sikorsky, was strangely an attack helicopter without a defense contract. 1 year after the US entered the Vietnam War, the US identified a need for an advanced aerial fire support system, or AAFSS. This new aircraft would replace the Bell UH-1s that were being used as attack helicopters in Vietnam. The AAFSS had a design speed of 260 knots compared to modified Huey's top speed of less than 100 knots. The Army chose 2 manufacturers to submit formal proposals to the AAFSS, Sikorsky and Lockheed. Sikorsky's proposal was the S-66, which had a 2-man cockpit, a conventional rotor, but its tail rotor could swivel 90 degrees, acting as both a tail rotor and a pusher propeller. Lockheed's proposal was the Cheyenne, an incredible design that had advanced navigation and fire control suite. It is now kind of infamous for its gunner station, which would rotate the entire seat, sighting system and fire controls to whichever way the gun turret was facing. Like the Sikorsky design, it had a pusher propeller. However, unlike the S-66, it had a conventional tail rotor as well. Ultimately, the Cheyenne was chosen for the contract, but it ran into problems whilst in testing, and the production contract was cancelled. Some consider the Cheyenne to be one of the best, if not the best, attack helicopter never built. Ultimately, the US Army would continue to use the stopgap they designed, that being the AH-1 Cobra. Sikorsky, not discouraged by the loss of the contract, went back, took lessons learned from the S-66 and the Cheyenne, and went about developing a new, high-speed gunship, the S-67 Blackhawk. However, there was no defense contract funding, so the United Aircraft Corporation chose to fully fund the S-67 program. The S-67 is a combination of proven component and new design concepts, a Sikorsky fact sheet stated. The result is a new helicopter weapon system at greatly reduced cost and technical risk, high performance, ease of maintenance, and early availability. I was shocked when I learnt that the Mi-6 took about a year to design, but the S-67 has it beat. Incredibly, it took just 7 months to build. Sikorsky had a bit of a head start given the lessons learned from the previous AAFSS program, but it's still an incredible achievement given the quality of the aircraft produced in such a short time. The S-67 had swept wings and a large cambered vertical fin for stability. The S-67 was actually the first helicopter to use such a design to benefit directional stability and effectively proved the concept. At low speed, the tail rotor would manage the torque compensation of the main rotor like a conventional helicopter. But over 46 miles per hour, or 75 kilometers an hour, the tail fin would take over the responsibility. If the tail rotor was ever damaged, the S-67 could limp back home thanks to this design. The helicopter's wings could be removed for different mission loadouts, and even came equipped with air brakes, the first on a helicopter. The air brakes could open in just 3 seconds and yielded an increase in deceleration of up to 100%. Between the air brakes, wings, and vertical fin, the S-67 proved to be an incredibly stable platform, making it extraordinary at target acquisition and engagement. The S-67 had an incredibly slim cockpit, just 3 foot 10 inches. This made it a hard target to hit and also benefited the helicopter's overall goal of being fast and nimble. The S-67 had 2 General Electric 1500 horsepower gas turbine engines that pushed the S-67 to an impressive speed of 220 miles per hour or 354 kilometers an hour. The S-67 wasn't just fast, it could also carry a fuckload of weapons. It could carry 7,000 pounds of weapons and ammunition. It had 4 hardpoints and could carry TOW missiles or 70mm Hydra rockets. The S-67 also had a turret underneath the fuselage that could mount a 20mm minigun or an XM188, which I believe is a 30mm Gatling gun, which would have been pretty bonkers on such a small, nimble platform. The S-67 even had space behind the cockpit for 6 fully kitted soldiers. Fuel tanks could even be mounted under the wings to provide extra range during search and rescue operations. This cabin could even carry electronic equipment intended for observation and surveillance. Despite being able to carry all that payload, the S-67 was still capable of split-S maneuvers, loops, and even rolls. Although, maybe rolls aren't the best idea. The Army was originally going to pit the Blackhawk against the King Cobra and the Cheyenne, the winner of which would replace the Cheyenne, and ultimately chose that none of them was suitable and decided instead to start a new program in 1972, that being the Advanced Attack Helicopter Program. The Army sought an anti-armor attack helicopter that had more firepower, performance, and range of an AH-1. It had to also be capable of nap of the earth flying or very low level flying to avoid detection. The Army also reduced the speed requirements compared to the AAFSS program. Lockheed submitted the Cheyenne, Sikorsky the S-71. It was designed to use the same engine, rotor, gearbox, tail cone, tail pylon, horizontal stabilizer, and landing gear components as the UH-60, which was being submitted to the Army Utility Tactical Transport Aircraft System program, which is a program to find the UH-1's replacement. It was essentially an S-67 inspired fuselage with an S-70 rotor. The idea was to lower costs by sharing parts between both utility and gunship programs, but the Army decided there was too much risk involved in giving one company two programs. Funnily enough, Sikorsky's submission to the utility helicopter program would win and turn into the Blackhawk. Bell submitted the YAH-63A, which is a fucking abomination. Honestly, I think the A stands for agony because this thing looks hurt. It had a 3-wheel tricycle gear, flat canopy window plates, a T-tail, and a 3-barreled 30mm cannon. Unlike the AH-1 or most attack helicopters for that matter, the pilot sat in the front with the gunner in the back. Bell believed that this would make it easier for the pilot to fly in nap or low-level operations. Boeing and Vertol submitted the 235, which, you thought the YAH-63A looked painful? Get a load of this. Words cannot describe the pain this helicopter evokes in me. Thankfully, the world was only cursed with one mock-up, and it never flew. Not much information exists about this helicopter, and by the looks of it, the design doesn't look particularly well thought out. Interestingly, it, like Sikorsky's design, shared parts, mainly the rotor system, avionics, and parts of the tail, with Boeing's submission for the utility helicopter program. Hughes submitted the YAH-64. The Army selected the 63A and the 64 as the finalists, with the 64 ultimately winning thanks to its high damage tolerance and the instability of the 63's tricycle gear arrangement. The 64 also just looks a million times better than the 63A, and let's be honest, looks are everything. Sikorsky, undeterred, tried to market the S-67 to foreign markets in late 1972, packing it up and shipping it to Europe and the Middle East. Upon returning from the first tour, the Army expressed interest in the heli again, allocating funding for a series of modifications including a fan-in-fin design, although this modification was later removed. 2 years later, the S-67 went on another Europe tour, and was slated to perform alongside the new CH-53 Super Stallion. Unfortunately, during a press preview flight for the Farnborough Air Show, the S-67 struck the ground during a right-hand roll at low level. Both pilots were killed, the aircraft was destroyed, and Sikorsky terminated the program. What might have actually killed the S-67 may have been the tactics it was designed to employ. It was designed to attack at a shallow dive, which was considered optimum for engaging tanks with tow wire-guided missiles and strafing targets with rocket pods. This tactic, however, put the S-67 right in the middle of the engagement basket of Soviet self-propelled anti-aircraft guns like the Shilka. Ultimately, the AH-64 would employ tactics of low-level attacks, popping up from one angle, taking a shot, and ducking back down before relocating to a different angle. The S-67 Blackhawk was an incredible design that looks simply stunning. But even if it was chosen in either the Advanced Aerial Fire Support System or the Advanced Attack Helicopter program, its service life may have been short-lived, as improvements in anti-air platforms and tactics may have made it completely obsolete. The Blackhawk name still lives on in the UH-60, but anytime I see the Blackhawk now, I can't help but think of the slim curves of the Blackhawk that came before. I hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.